All right, and we are now live, and this is Biweeklycast number 41, if I'm not mistaken. Hosts are still here. On the other end of the line, we have you.
And I'm Slava Rudnitsky, and you are?
And I'm on this end of the line, and I'm Dima Malenko. And today we have a topic. We are going to talk about distractions a little bit, but we do have a little bit of follow-up. Do you have any follow-up from you?
No. I was curious about your theme, but that's part of the agenda.
Yes. Were you worried for a moment that I omitted that from agenda and you were going to protest that they do?
Yeah, I would include it as a follow-up anyway.
That makes sense. A couple, was it a couple? I think, yeah, it was a couple of episodes ago. We first read and then discussed book You Surely Joking, Mr. Feynman, where we spent quite a time talking about the Brazilian education system. And I had the chance to talk to one of my colleagues who happened to be from Brazil. Before the first episode, he was on vacation. I couldn't cross-check this with him, but this time I could. And turns out that he would agree that the story is probably true. It kind of resonates with his experience and perception with Brazilian education system. Granted that whatever the experience he had was later than what Feynman describes, but that description didn't sound too off the mark for him, which is interesting. But the good news is that these days, it seems to be better.
Fingers crossed. From Brazil to London?
To London.
How's the year of Next going?
Year of Next was going. I think as all the themes, right, as we discussed previously, there are several metaphoric kind of meanings for this theme. For me, I'm kind of working towards like the next big project that I'm going to do at work, and also I wanted to focus a little bit more on just doing the next thing, like taking the next steps in some other endeavors, rather than maybe indulging in too much of analysis and finessing and all other great things typically associated with perfectionism. And thus far it was going reasonably well. I'm not too happy how like the first half of the year went, and as I already discussed maybe in the previous episode, I noticed that the journaling is a great indicator for me to spot when like things start going awry, where I start kind of rushing, do not allow myself enough time to think through things I'm doing, and so on and so forth. I tend to drop journaling, and this is an indicator, like other things are being dropped, and this is not great. And I think for almost like two or 3 months, I was in this kind of somewhat unfortunate mode, but I got out of that, and thanks once again, thanks to the theme of that. All right, so this is not great. What would be the next thing for me to do to sort of fix that?
I believe you tried this sub-levels of a yearly theme and seasons and months, and you seemed doubtful whether it's going to work. How is it going so far?
I think that's right. I tried it, and I continued trying that. And I here, to be honest, like when I was writing notes or capturing notes for the episode, I asked myself, like, are you doing this because it makes sense and is helpful, or are you doing it because it kind of looks nice? It gives it a nice structure, and also the way you described your sort of hierarchy of the themes, it not to say it looked fancy, but it sounded like it makes sense. I think it may be a little bit of both in my case, but I do find it helpful as a reminder, especially like I have I'm going with seasonal kind of themes or slight kind of directions within the team, and then monthly kind of stuff. So now I think of myself as being in a season of moving forward, because the previous like half a year roughly I spent mostly like figuring out where to go and how to go there. I think I figured out enough to move forward. So the idea now would be like, what do you do to actually move forward with those next things that I sort of identified? We'll see. I think I find monthly kind of things a little bit more helpful, and currently I'm thinking of myself as being in a month of a clean slate. When recovering from that low journaling period, I figured that there are a lot of things that kind of hold me back, where I was having an idea back there which looked and sounded like a good idea. I maybe started working on that, but then things changed and I didn't really kind of close on that idea explicitly to say, oh, it was a good idea then, but it doesn't make sense now, or it is of a lesser priority than anything else, and I should just drop it and put it in the parking lot. And I felt those things, those unfinished, unclosed businesses were holding me back. And now I'm explicitly kind of focusing on things that are new, keep me moving forward, and whenever old things come up, to close them out one way or the other, but like put them to rest. And long and windy, why I'm saying that monthly things I feel a little bit better about is that because of the structure of my journaling, which I do in the bullet journal. Whatever I do, it has no relation to bullet journaling, but I use the bullet journal, and it has three. How do you call those ribbony things that you have in a notebook to bookmarks? Are they bookmarks? They're
Yep.
little bookmarks. For whatever reason, it has three bookmarks. I don't. That may be a method, but it's sort of helpful. I keep one bookmark on the current day, the next blank page to do the journaling, but then I also have a page for the month where I have, like, it says like July. This is the theme for July, and then the dates with maybe important events that are planned for that month. And every time I do journaling, I come back to this monthly page and kind of read this monthly theme, and I think it's sort of helpful to remind me of that focus.
If we jump down from this very meta description of how it's going into real life things, like what has actually changed for you within this half a year? Have you switched a number of projects, or have you started doing another kind of work, working with different people? Like, what's this next, at least in general, for you?
And that's a great question. I think both of those things kind of happened. The previous big thing I was working on, which I was not the only person working on that, but I consider myself being either mother or father of this thing. So like this half year were a little bit like sending this baby to university. So you like it will be interacted with a whole bunch of other different people. They will be taking care of it, and I will no longer be the sort of the primary guardian of this thing. So this transition was happening both on the level of kind of doing the project related formalities to make it sort of happen, put necessary structures in place, but also internally and kind of psychologically, like this was the big thing, this was my baby, and I'm no longer going to be spending the majority of my time specifically sort of on that. I will be spending on the next on the sibling for this thing, I think going forward, but that would be primarily with other people to continue evolution in that area. So this is one transition that was happening, and that naturally led to me working more with you and other people, and on a, if I may say so, like slightly different kind of high level of problems or challenges that we want to address.
Mm-hmm. Has it creeped out of business? Has anything in personal life been impacted by the year of next?
That's a, you know what questions to ask. Yes and no. And yes, in a sense that I sort of now know what are the things that I want to do. Like, for example, like with photography, as I mentioned that I went to that course on street photography, which was like, I'm super happy that I did that, even though I was hesitant in the beginning. I sort of know what I want to do. Not the problem is, but like through some unfortunate string of circumstances, I didn't get to actually do that, and that's why my kind of like season is a season of moving forward. Like you have, like, you sort of have a plan, like move forward, dude. So that kind of thing. But so this is the sort of the yes part that, yeah, I think I figured, and committing to start doing that something there, but know that I didn't actually do much in practice for that. But I do hope that by the next time we are talking, that there would be positive things to report.
Speaking of the next time, what are your expectations for the remaining half of the year?
To get those next things kind of really going so that they are visible outside, let's say, my brain.
I remember in the original theme system journal, they suggest that you kind of detailize the attributes of a theme that you expect, like some outcomes that would visualize that you're there. Do you have such things in mind, like this and this and this should happen, so I would consider the year of next success?
Yes, yeah, I do. So,
All
like,
right.
one thing, like, it would be related to what I said. It should be kind of visible to outside. So on the like work related stuff, I want to have made progress on this big new thing that would be kind of recognized by the end of the year, so that, yeah, we are moving with this. It's like going more or less fine, or at least in the right or interesting direction. And also, most of all, like, one of the other things I'm focusing is related to photography. That would be some sort of meaningful event related to that happening. And like, by meaningful event, I would mean like I'm looking at different competitions and stuff to maybe not to maybe to kind of participate and see what kind of feedback I would get, and maybe, like, hopefully sort of maybe get something out of that. Who knows? Like, but getting something out of that would be one of those meaningful outcomes. Or I think of maybe trying with photo books and stuff. I do have several series of photographs which I think might be meaningful if assembled as a book or a zine, and I'll see how to make it happen.
So soon on biweeklymerge.com.
Yep. It can be, or just kind of prints
Yeah,
of photos.
I do see your prints every day. Like there are 3 of your photos right in front of me and two on my left. So I totally recommend in case you're interested in some cool pictures.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you for the kind words. You can now see yourself as a kind of collectioner, right?
Yeah, I do. I still wait for the autograph, but that should complete the quest.
It could. It could. Cool. So that's how it's going.
Shall we move on, or anything else you'd like to mention about the themes?
I think this is mostly it. I mentioned the journaling thing, which I surprised. Like I said many times, I surprisingly found this as a useful indicator of my internal state and internal productivity. So I'm trying to stick to that.
Well, then distractions.
Yes, distractions. Like working on what's next and stuff. I more and more kind of realize that, oh, dude, like I'm working on so many things, or rather, I'm touching so many things, and so many things touch me in return. And it's not like sometimes, or maybe quite oftentimes, it has a tendency to of getting into unproductive territory where like small things start chipping out on my time and attention, leaving not so much time and attention and energy to do something kind of meaningful, to do that next thing that I'm aspiring to do. And I started looking into how I regroup, reorganize whatever I'm doing, the routines and the environment and so on, to make it a little bit easier in that department. And I wanted to run some of those challenges or problems or ideas with you, and also learn from you on how you manage those things.
Sure. And based on the definition section, you split those into three big categories.
Right, right. As you might have expected, even from this episode, like I do like structures and hierarchies and things of that nature. I was thinking that the distractions here, the distractions in the title are distractions in sort of a broad sense. It's not that someone taps you on the shoulder and kind of distracts you literally from this thing, but to me, I would also mean like other things that take away from my ability to do what I intend to do. And they may not be literal distractions, but I still kind of lump them under the distractions category. And when I think about those things that pull me away from doing what I want or intend to do, I categorize them in sort of three broad categories. Like the true distractions, when the phone rings, someone calls you, the notification about chat comes, like true to its sense distractions, like no noise. Then I think I'm dealing with what I refer to as digressions or kind of attention grabbers. When yes, you would have a process of managing distractions, right? I would try to have my notifications off for Messenger and then check them at the specific time. But then still, when you're checking those notifications, things can come up that require attention. Like there is a question that falls roughly squarely into your ballpark, but you need to spend some time kind of cross-checking the answer or getting the details and stuff like that. So it makes you digress from what you were doing to do this kind of thing. But they're sort of smaller. You digress and then hopefully you get back. And then there would be more seismic sort of events, which I refer to diversion, when like a bomb. Geez, that's a bad analogy. Like something new and big is being dropped, or something sort of happens, and new information comes in, or a challenge or issue has been discovered, which means that, oh no, like I do really need to stop doing what I was planning to do for some meaningful amount of time, which means like I need to reprioritize, and therefore this new big thing takes away from my ability to continue and focus on the big thing.
Could you explain to me the difference between the second and the third level, the digressions and diversions? Because based on the way you described it now, I can totally see how one thing could become as digression and then evolve into a diversion.
Yes. So I guess the difference in the moment, it might not be possible to tell the difference, but
So we might be talking about the same distraction, but at different phases. At the phase when it's just a notification, at the phase when you start thinking about it, at the phase when you actually schedule hours to work on it.
no, I think not exactly. I think the diversion may come out of digression, because like there is a small signal, small dent somewhere, you go in to investigate and discover, oh no, like there is a whole world that we need to deal with now, and this is how diversion would grow into digression, will grow into diversion. And digression I would call a distraction or thing that roughly definitely not more than a week, like you deal with it and you get back on track on for your previous things, like you step aside and then you get back relatively sort of quickly. And the diversion would be something that says, oh, like for the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months I cannot work on what I planned because this is the new thing that kind of needs to be dealt with. And I would imagine that diversions are a lot less common than other thing, but that they would mean taking conscious decisions to stop doing or to deprioritize some of those things that you were thinking of doing prior
If
to
I may
that.
add to your classification another classification, but not of the distractions, but things you distract from, the tasks themselves or the challenges that you work on. And I have three, but they are food. One is an apple, one is broccoli, and one is an egg. There are apple tasks. I like apples. I can just grab an apple and eat it straight away. That's the type of task that you can just think of and start doing. And then, like, not many things can distract me from an apple. Broccoli. You can take broccoli and start eating it, but I'm not a big fan of this thing. And this is when distractions will start happening. Like, even if I know that I have to eat broccoli, here you come, and the procrastination starts in at different levels. It could be true distractions, digressions, diversions, or something worse. And then there are eggs, boiled eggs specifically. And with boiled eggs, you have to start cooking it and then leave it for 10 minutes, and it doesn't boil any faster than 10 minutes. Like, and you can actually get distracted for this time and do something else in order just given the time to cook. And then afterwards, you have to peel it and eat it. So these are three type of activities. And in the third one, I think the distractions are actually useful. Like, that's when you have to distract, because you just can't sit for 10 minutes and wait for it to happen. Usually this boiling happens in my mind. Like, I can just come to the level when it just takes time, and then I wait, I do something else, and when it's cooked, I come back to it, and voila. So these are the three type of things, and some of them can correlate to different types of distractions.
I have two points I want to say here. I'm trying to write them down so that I don't
First of all, you
forget.
like to protect broccoli, yeah?
No. I think this is actually great. You can't imagine how excited I am about this angle on this thing, because I think what the classification that you offer here is, I don't feel it kind of negates the thing we discussed thus far with those different kinds of distractions, but it offers an orthogonal view of on the landscape with somewhat orthogonal forces to how situation is being developed. So it's not only which kind of distractions you are dealing with, but like you said, like what is it that you are distracted from? There is another dimension to it, and like those two things combined can lead to different outcomes. And I think that there is yet another somewhat orthogonal dimension that I wanted to mention, and I'll get to this, but this is like point number one. Like super excited to start looking deeper into different driving forces here. And then more specific point about eggs, I think with egg-like tasks, this is where distractions and this whole thing sort of shines, because when you get those 10 minutes, I would think that I don't want those 10 minutes to be used for distractions. Like I know that eggs take like 2 minutes to put them on the stove, to pour water and stuff. And then I get 10 minutes, and I would plan to use those 10 minutes for something else, hopefully kind of meaningful, okay, moving me to the next phase on another project. And there is an extra danger of being distracted by saying, oh, I cannot do something big here, let me just scroll through Instagram, like whatever it is. And there would be also, like, to me, that moment would be a moment where difference between distraction and intentional work would come into play.
I can give you an example of an egg. As Alexei and I were completing our CELTA course, it's a Cambridge certification for teachers, and we had to study quite intensively 5 days a week. And then during the weekend, we would write assignments, and we would do it very differently. He would just wake up in the morning, start drafting the thing, keep drafting the thing, then take a little break, then after lunch get back to editing and shortcutting it and polishing it, and by the evening he would have his essay done. In my case, I would wake up in the morning, have breakfast, write down 5 bullets, and then go for a walk. Then I would do some shopping, I would work out, and still on my background, like on the back of my mind, I would be thinking, like, what would I do with those bullets that I drafted in the morning? And after lunch, I would sit there and write down some more ideas, thoughts, and questions, and then get distracted again by doing something else. But this something else is not intellectually intensive. It could be, cleaning or a walk or workout or whatever, driving somewhere, riding a bike. But it still gives it time to boil down. And then I would come back in, and within an hour, I would write 4 pages, which were graded the same as Alexei's. And he was always jealous about the thing, but I couldn't explain that I was jealous about his ability. When he takes a break, he doesn't work on things. Like he actually, when he looks at the lake, he looks at the lake. When I look at the lake, there are some bullets on the back of my
Still
mind
writing on this
that
day.
I still consider in the process. So I can say that any of our approaches is better or worse. They're just different. But these type of tasks is like an egg for me. And sometimes you don't know how long it's going to cook, because unlike eggs, this essay can be more challenging or less challenging. I could figure it out in 2 hours and complete after lunch, or it could take me more than one day. Unless there is a deadline, then I know that it's not going to be longer than 2 days.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense. And I also, I think I'm more like you in that regard, and sometimes I am jealous of people like Alexei who can kind of sit down and do the thing. But at the same time, yeah, I feel like with wandering around, sometimes I get interesting ideas to bring to the table.
So shall we focus on some of your categories?
Yep, let's try and do that. I was going to kind of explore some of them and talk through some of the challenges that I'm kind of facing with it. So if we start with true distractions, I think like by this day and age, it would be expected that everyone have read and kind of knows what's the general advice how to deal with like true real distractions. We do all have like noise canceling headphones and stuff like that. We know to turn off messages and notifications and so on and so forth, which is great. I found it, I'm still amazed about the transition from working from home to working in office. I think initially working from home was great, and people regarded this as being great. Right? You don't have all of the office distractions and stuff like that, but then if you work from home, you realize that you have a lot of home distractions. There are deliveries coming. There are children by the window that come by and shout. There is like whoever has pets. There is your dog barking, wanting something from you, or cat. I think maybe it's easier with cats. I never had cat as a true pet, so I cannot speak for that. But there's a whole bunch of other distractions that you get at home. And then when I was coming back to working in office, initially I was like a huge fan of it because it was post-COVID times and office was mostly empty. Not a lot of people liked working from home because it saved them but on the commute and stuff. Not a lot of people were going to the office, and I actually like going to the office because it was quiet. Not a lot of people were there. Some of the amenities were like super helpful. It was easy to just go in, kind of get lunch, spend like 30 minutes on it and be done back to work, as opposed to you cook maybe lunch for 30 40 minutes, then you eat it, and it takes just more time. The coffees was more available and things of that nature. It was great, even at the cost of commute. And I thought that, hey, commute is not too bad because it allowed me to switch on and off the work mode mostly. But then all of the other people returned to office, and now office, I think, is back to the pre-COVID days mostly. So it's noisy, a lot of people moving around, the distractions are there, and like people come in with questions and so on and so forth. Mind you that it is great. Like I just love the whiteboarding sessions that I get with people in the office. I love those occasional hallway conversations where you stumble upon an idea and you kind of build up on that with the person who is also passionate about the thing. Those things are great, but then the distractions and the noise are also great. And of course, those noise canceling headphones help. Other more private spaces in the office also help, but it was interesting evolution. And now I feel like both working from home and working from office, I get about the same amount of different noisy distractions. They just are of a different nature. I wonder how, like, did you experience anything similar? Or was it always this more or less the same for you?
Yeah, I would also add one more type of work. It happened to me on Monday when we were meeting with our business development team, and it was our first meeting in 2 years live. Like, it just happened that two of the people were in Kiev and two were just passing by, and voila, we meet together. And I didn't feel that I could literally be distracted by anything at the moment, because it's like a strategic session when you fully commit and you're fully engaged. And for such things, you can schedule half a day and intentionally spend time out of all other information channels just to be there. That's a very conscious choice that you make. And then I remember my office days. It was really hard to do strategic work. Like, I could do operational tasks. I was okay with some tactical things, calls, discussions, and talks, but thinking and creating was really hard. I was trying to escape to a meeting room or just take my laptop and go somewhere without anyone I know. Like, noise, dogs, and other things were not as bad as people who I know, because they can easier grab my attention. So for me, these are three kind of things, like hybrid, when you work in the office, then when you work at home. In my case, home has a huge distractor of just when I'm tired, I can get some rest, and this rest can take longer than I can plan. I can physically get tired, and then I'll take a nap for 15 minutes, and then 45 minutes later, it was not 15 minutes, and my schedule just crumbles. This is probably the biggest distraction. But I'm a big fan of those focus periods, like focus time when people can come to the office, but it's a no meeting or no conversation day, when you just deep dive into something you do, or strategic sessions when people come to solve a challenge or a task and they agree on how they're going to do. They set the rules of this interaction, and these are my favorite work time periods. The apples, I'd say.
Oh, this sounds great, and I have a question for you, and this would be a digression a little bit on the topic you mentioned, like going in strategic session or the meeting with your marketing partners, where you fully commit to the conversation and you are fully in it. I know that you are using this Rocketbook note taking thing, right, for taking notes. And the reason why I'm asking is that I at work I always bring my laptop to any kind of meeting, because I take notes there on my laptop. But then, as you would imagine, with that comes the temptation and potential for distraction even in the session. And I there is a whole bunch of stuff where I want to be like truly committed to, but I still want to take notes, and I want to get them such that I can put them in my usual kind of digital place, so that I can refer and search and scroll through them. And I'm kind of super tempted. I want to just come to those things with a pen and paper and a paper notebook. But then I know that if I commit this to a paper, I would never, almost never get back to those notes. And this is not what I want. And I started looking at means to kind of get the best of both worlds, come with something like pen and paper, but then be able to easily transfer that to my usual place. I haven't found a good solution yet, but yeah, maybe if you or listeners have ideas, I would be all ears for that.
I could possibly suggest not a complete solution, but something that could potentially work out. The Rocket Book system has the tags that you can put on physical objects like whiteboards or flip charts. And that does not only scan the notepad pages, but you can save the entire sections of whiteboards or something. And this is what I usually do. I have these little tags. You put them on the corners of something that should get scanned. And if I work even in the working area, I just put them there. And when I take a picture, it's not just a regular picture that is really hard to process. It gets saved in PDF and sent to places I'd like it to be sent. And it works probably best. But I still carry these blank pages and paper and pens, because that's how I think. Like, I could be listening to people and I get a lot of things happening at the same time. I stop listening if I don't write them down. They just clog me and my attention starts to divert. So I have to put them on paper, but they are not always useful. This is something I can get back to. The only thing that helps me here is that after such meetings, I usually schedule half an hour to process what has to get digital and what I would like to transfer into some other places and what can just stay on paper.
This makes a lot of sense. And I wonder if maybe at this day I would do a research and maybe report back with all the advancements in AIs and stuff like that. Maybe we can put this to something like useful rather than generating silly pictures. Can it just take a picture of my notes and turn them into notey tags that I can paste into my
it can
Obsidian or Logsac?
It depends on your handwriting though, and the languages. Like, it doesn't do well in Ukrainian, for instance, but if you handwrite in English, that should be fine.
Yeah, but then
unless you're this doctor type of handwriting,
right? Script like hieroglyphs and stuff like that. Good stuff. I'll try it out and see how it works. It's a great. I think that this was a productive digression. So back to original scheduling. I think one of the things with we know to turn all of the notifications and stuff, and I have notifications off for most of the apps, but there are some apps that you still want to get notifications when something happens. but that there are some apps that are super annoying and they abuse their power to send notifications to
Could
me.
you give
For
an example?
example, yes, for example, Uber. I don't want to turn off notifications for Uber because when I call Uber and it starts messaging me about like the driver arriving and stuff like that, I want to get those notifications. But Uber also sends a whole bunch of promo crap, like you have £10 for Uber Eats or like whatever it is, and it took me a longest time to figure out how to turn this off. And I turned stuff off, but I still do occasionally get those messages, and it is so super annoying. I just complaining here and venting. I don't know
I have a
if I'm
solution.
asking for anything proactive. Yeah.
Focus modes. This thing actually resolves your issues within a click. If you get work mode, leisure mode, public mode, whatever, you can reset notifications for different apps in different focus modes. And let's say you are open to notifications at some certain point, you're okay with Uber
Right.
contacting you or some other apps getting in touch. You just switch into this mode, and for 15 minutes, you're waiting for a taxi. It's okay that some things will come up on your phone. And then when you're done, you just roll back to whatever mode you'd like. And you can have as many of those. Plus, one of the things I love about the focus modes is that you can set up exceptions. Like, I don't want to get any notifications from WhatsApp except from my wife. And she's the only person who can get through. And that makes a lot of sense. I can use this focus mode as a layer on top of standard notifications of the app. And it kind of makes a lot of sense to me. But it seems not to make a lot of sense to you now.
No, it does. It does. I think I also use focus modes, and they do help. I think what, like specifically with things like Uber, what I want to avoid is an like extra maintenance, so that when you call an Uber, you need to remember to switch to a particular mode and stuff. And maybe I'm not sure if I was looking for any sort of it's really practical advice on the Uber situation, or maybe it was more just me being annoyed with some of the apps where you would trust the developer to do the right thing for you, and they totally betray this trust by sending you
I
crappy
know my default
notifications.
setting is notifications off. Like whenever I install a new app, it just doesn't get
Okay.
a permission. And most apps that do get permission to notifications, they don't get banners or sounds. They just get badges, and that's it.
Yeah, that's fair. Good point. Good point. One other thing with notifications and distractions was, like, we discussed a little bit the batching, right? When chats and stuff, you ideally, I think most of the time, the most productive way would be not to respond to any incoming message when it comes in, but rather schedule a specific time when you process that. And me being not say me being me, but me being in a position where I am, and when I started, I said that I touch so many different things, and so many different things touch me. And when I do that, when the time comes for me to process the incoming messages, I may be getting like dozens of chat threads with maybe some substantial amount of information in them that I need to process. And I'm so not looking forward to those moments. And sometimes it would also lead to me just, like closing the chats and getting back to work without responding to the things that might need my attention, which is also not great. And I wonder if you have any similar situations and how you deal with them.
I feel a bit different because we've rearranged a number of things in our chatting system. For instance, right now we use chats, especially with groups, like a folder on an email, and people just write the name of a thread and then tag all people in this thread. But you can manage whether you would like to just turn off notifications from this thread and never read it anymore, or if you would like to never read it unless there is a tag. for you, and then you'll definitely see it. Or you could mute it for some time. If there is an active conversation going somewhere,
Right.
you can just mute it for a day or 6 hours or a week or something, and then it will get unmuted afterwards. And this system cleared it up. Like right now, when I come back after 3 calls in a row, I have to read maybe 3 chats, maybe 4 chats, but that's manageable. That's not something it used to be, because previously I would have dozens, and dozens do seem really intimidating. So we kind of fixed that by taking care that people don't get tagged when they are actually not needed.
So that was not only the technical solution that you implemented, but also
A managerial one.
conventions that you put in place with the team. Makes sense. And in this noisy distractions category, is there anything that bothers you that you're dealing with?
Apart from a helicopter and the air raids, no.
Dear.
Some things you can't escape from. I'd like to mute some of those, but
That would be great. It would be great to mute them forever.
for one day. So digressions then.
Yeah, the digressions. I think that the chat situation, like circling back to chat conversations and stuff, that for me would often be a source of those digressions where there's a question. Oh, I've seen this anomaly in the data. What might it mean? Does it mean that everything is broken and we just didn't know about that, or is just a fluke and maybe an experimental error, like whatever thing, and minor thing is not worth that is not worth any attention. And once again, like me being me, if someone were to ask me like how to get me distracted, the idea would be to give me a problem that sounds like a mystery. It's like, oh, we don't understand what's going on here. Like, can you help? I'll be yes. Call me and I'll be there to help. And oftentimes those chatty conversations turn into sort of digressions for me, and I think they're not great because they eat into time, eat into attention, and sometimes some of the things may have the kind of the recency loudness bias attached to them. When someone is screaming, oh, like everything is sort of broken, you have to be cold-blooded to say like when you say everything is broken, what exactly do you mean? Like, what is broken? What's not the way you expect it? And you can talk people through saying, oh, like, yeah, I expected there to be 7 and it's 8. Oh, okay, so this is what's broken. Let's maybe deal with it next week, or like have someone else to look into that. But still, I find these kind of things to be a significant drain on my ability to kind of focus and get back to the stuff that I wanted to work with. And I'm trying to set up a better sort of process or triaging model or something for myself to
might
deal
have
with
an
this
idea
more
for you.
effectively. Okay, yeah, I'm all ears.
Whenever something like this happens in my case, and I see it, like, I don't know why it happened, but I saw the interesting, intriguing, or challenging question, I usually note it down in my inbox as the next thing to do when I have a break. Like Artyom's request on something.
Right.
When I come to this break, like I come out of the meeting, or I have this like next free slot that I planned for such type of tasks, usually the first thing that comes to my mind is a number of clarification questions. Like I quite rarely get straight to answering something or solving something. I usually have a number of things. And this is where ChatGPT comes really handy, because right now I have this assistant that transforms my voice to text really fast and fancy. And I just use it to make quite a big message within a few seconds. And I voice out all the questions I have and send this card to standby mode. Like I'm waiting for an answer. And then when I get all the details and all the things I need, I can schedule it as an actual task to get down to it. So my reaction is pretty fast. I get all the info without a meeting or a call. And sometimes it is a call because people say, like, oh, I'll have to show you, and we have to schedule a call. But generally, I just get all the essential things that help me plan it. Because usually when you see just a tip of an iceberg, it's really hard to see how challenging it's going to be, what is the final outcome people expect, how urgent it is. And I can just unload all the questions and see. When I see the fuller context, I can get back to it. And then it's not a distraction. It's just another way of getting incoming tasks, but it's fully under control.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think I'm using something similar, not maybe similar in spirit. That is, that when I'm processing those chats, I would try to, and most of the time that would be, I would be successful with that, not to do the thing right now, but put it in a to-do list and then have a time allocated for dealing with those smaller things, to fight that recency bias a little bit, so that when you have a fuller picture of the things that need to be done, it is a little bit easier to decide what to actually do and say no to things that are not worthy. Uh, that's right. But I also feel that I sometimes maybe spend too much time dealing with all of those smaller stuff. So like that buffer of dealing with this thing, that allocated block, is sort of growing, and I don't think this is a good idea. And trying to figure out ways how to triage things faster and maybe bounce them to other people faster, so that I don't have to spend my cycles on processing them, especially when I'm not going to be producing the value add outcome for this activity.
By the way, there was one team that kind of impressed me by what they did. If they are looking for your answer that is long and intensive, like basically they are engaging you into solving something, they have an agreement on how this request should start, what should be in it, and how it should end. So people, because sometimes an issue is that you start getting into something that is not fully described, and you don't really understand why people are doing what they're doing, what they expect to do, how urgent it is, and a number of other things. You just see a question. And what that team is practicing is that when you get to someone who is not in your direct collaboration, like you don't work with them on a daily basis, you would have to describe the context. And usually they do it by linking it to an actual card in Asana or another task manager. And people who need the context to understand how this question came to life, they can easily come see the cards, understand the deadline, understand who is involved, and then see whether it's easier to assess whether you should get into it right now. And usually it's just a few clicks away. You can read the message itself. It usually says urgent or not urgent. And it does have an expected result from you. Like if I want you to answer the question, it would be saying like, Dima, I've got a question. Please give me a 3-sentence overview.
Right.
And I don't need any more details, or like, right now, give me 3 sentences. And then when you have time, I'd like to talk about it in voice.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think what seems to me to be kind of maybe the most powerful idea in what you describe, which I think I also try to do that, but maybe not as often, is to have this thing sort of happen in public, right? So that there is this card, Asana, whatever else, and then everything that happens, answers, questions, context, and so on, is layered on that and is available to everyone involved, so that as much as possible, they can draw their own conclusions or figure out the next steps, whatever it is, by themselves without necessarily needing to involve you, because you are the only bearer of the context and current state of the
And when
problem.
you engage a new person, it's quite easy to get this person
Right.
in touch, but you don't have to explain everything over and over.
Right. I think that this is very, very powerful idea overall.
But it does depend on the majority of people doing the same, because obviously.
For sure. Good, great stuff. I think we don't have too much time, but we do have some notes, and there are some, maybe two things I wanted to explore with you. We maybe will not have enough time to get into this reprioritization kind of thing, because it's not necessarily a distraction, right? It's just a change of course, so it doesn't necessarily fit. Those things happen. Hopefully they don't happen too often. That's fine, whatever. But with that, even with that, and then some other stuff like this, even with the small digressions, there may be that, hey, you start exploring something, you spend time on it, and it turns out to be like nothing. And with absolute measure, you can say that, oh, that was a time wasted, right? You spend time doing something which led to no result whatsoever, which might be frustrating, especially for people who sort of have efficiency mindset or something, where they think, I'm asking for a friend, you know, like, right? They think that they have so much stuff to do, and wasting time is not permissible, and that's bad, because instead of doing something not productive, not fruitful, they could have been doing something else that could have been productive and fruitful, because there are so many things to do, and there is a little bit of that sunk cost fallacy that can kick in sometimes. Did you experience anything like that, or do you have a friend maybe who experienced anything like that?
I
How
have a
they deal
colleague
with it?
who does, yeah. And we were talking to them recently, and the solution seems to be to switch your focus to a different kind of results, because you probably expect some outcomes, something more deliverable, something clear. And one of the greatest things you can get from things that didn't meet your expectations are lessons learned. When you come out of something and you have some conclusions that you can share, for example, in your case, in a post that you can write something that, like, guys, this is what happened, this is what I've learned, and these are the outcomes. Or an idea for a podcast or something else. These things can be really, you don't always know when you're going to use them. Plus, in my line of business right now, I deal a lot with assumptions. And let's say 8 out of 10 assumptions don't perform as well as you would like them to.
Sure.
And here I kind of like the Google X approach, that it's not about the great success, but how many things you've tried and you just crossed out of the list, because you're basically helping the team not to do some extra work afterwards. You're working on this project idea. Some of them fly and bring the results, others don't. And you are an effective performer if you crossed away 5 things from the list that people don't have to try anymore, and they instead can try other 5 things, and one of them will bring the result. This is your team result overall. So I really like this logic, because it kind of helps me see that I don't have to be the lucky one to get the proper idea and the assumption. I just have to process them as fast as I can and not stick to them. But when I can explain and communicate lessons learned and move on to the next thing, it's still effective.
No, I love it. I love this framing, and it kind of brings the idea of orthogonal view on things once again, right? You, like, when you were not able to get the value sort of the result, because the result was just not there, like, let's extract value from the process we went through in terms of lessons learned, or the time saved for someone else following our steps, that they can avoid spending this amount of time going going nowhere. Yeah, that's great. Maybe it would be appropriate to circle back. Like I promised, one more orthogonal kind of thing. It would be out of line. I think it would be more appropriate in the distraction or digression category. I feel that in my case there are also some orthogonal sources of those distractions and digressions where on one hand I would be working on specific projects towards specific outcomes, and there would be things that are related to that come in chats, whatever it is. But also I have I play a specific role, right? Not overall in the overall structure of the team or teams or the organization. And there would be things that come to me not because I'm engaged in projects, but because I'm operate in this particular role, and new things would come to me because of the role, not because of the projects. And those things are also kind of sort of orthogonal. They tend, at least in my case, they tend to be different in nature, where on the projecty stuff, that would be something where I need to be focused towards specific result to be produced, or code written, systems delivered, launched, whatever it is. But in my role, it is more of a direction, consultation, that kind of thing, helping, supporting others, and kind of being aware and cognizant of those things, and then kind of planning for them also helps, because in my case, for sure, I cannot plan all 100% of my time for project related work. I must account for the work that comes from a different direction, which I still need to do, which is different in nature, with different time cadences and so on and so forth. So there are a lot of driving forces, like circling back to this idea, and discovering them and figuring out ways of dealing with them is also important.
That's interesting because, as I was listening to you, I kind of figured that I don't consider changing plans a distraction. It's basically, it's still part of planning. And if you do it consciously, and that's okay. In my case, I can come to a week with 12 tasks, 12 hours of meetings, and 10 hours of focus time that I will spend doing something else, with some gaps and risk areas where something could go wrong. And then, I don't know, a huge task comes in, and this huge task requires a lot of my attention. I don't consider it as a distraction, because if it is more important than some of the other tasks, I will just do it instead of them, and that's fine. The only thing that is missing here is clear communications to all people involved, whether I can really clearly tell them why I'm not doing the thing I promised to do. And I think that social commitment is one of the hardest thing to overcome for me, because let's say I postpone it once, then I postpone it twice. Usually that's a signal for me to consider whether I should be doing this thing at all.
Don't get too hung up on the past, because past is gone. What matters is now and the future.
I think we barely scratched the surface of this theme.
No, but it was interesting and productive for me, even despite the digressions we had. I think at least I got a lot of interesting information and interesting ideas to additionally consider and try. So,
luckily, we didn't diverse fully from the topic, and the 2 distractions were not on the way.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So shall we call it a week?
Or 2 weeks, hopefully good ones.
Hopefully good ones.
Yep, take care.